Official case summaries. Unaltered footage. Transparent justice. You are watching Bodycam incident reports.
I don't care what you say he is. Show me the certification or take the dog outside. Now.
I don't need to show you paper, officer.
Last warning.
White paper.
Step away from the animal.
I do not touch my dog.
Back up.
You got to, all right?
Stop resisting.
At 7:45 p.m., the lobby of the Oak Room was quiet. Diners at the front tables were eating in low light. The atmosphere was deliberately hushed. Eli Payton stood near the heavy wooden hose stand. He was wearing a faded canvas jacket, dark jeans, and heavy work boots. Sitting directly at his left heel was Bruno, a large sable German shepherd. Bruno wore a plain black tactical harness. There were no bright neon patches, no "pet me" warnings, no muzzle. The dog was completely silent. His eyes calmly tracked the waiters moving between the tables, but his body remained completely anchored to Eli's side. Before we see the exact second this cop threw his career away, drop a like, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? The heavy glass front doors swung open. Officer Stanton walked in. He had been flagged down outside by the restaurant manager, Mr. Gates. Gates stood nervously near the coat check. He pointed a shaking finger toward the host stand. He just walked right past me. I told him no pets allowed in the dining room. He completely ignored me. People are getting up from their tables. Stanton barely looked at the manager. He looked across the lobby at the man in the cheap jacket and the massive dog. "I'll handle it," Stanton said. He unclipped his shoulder radio mic, adjusted the heavy leather duty belt on his waist, and walked across the lobby. Stanton didn't pause to assess the scene. He didn't notice the dog's unnatural, trained stillness. He walked straight up to Eli, aggressively closing the distance. He stopped less than 3 feet away, deliberately invading the man's physical space. "Sir, you need to remove the animal from the premises right now," Stanton ordered. His voice was loud, harsh, and deliberately projected. It cut straight through the quiet restaurant. The clinking of silverware stopped. Diners at the nearest tables turned around to watch. Eli didn't raise his voice. He didn't take a step back. He kept his hands open, palms empty, and completely visible at his sides. "He's a service animal," Eli replied evenly. "Manager says he wants you out," Stanton said. He rested his right hand flat on his duty belt, just inches away from the grip of his holster. "I don't care what you call him. Show me his certification and your medical papers." "I don't carry them," Eli stated. Stanton's jaw tightened. "Then you're trespassing. Take the dog and walk out that door right now before I put you in cuffs." "You get 2 questions, officer," Eli said. His voice was completely flat. Stanton stared at him. The silence between them stretched out for 3 heavy seconds. "That's not one of them," Eli continued, never breaking eye contact. Stanton's ego flared instantly. He was used to immediate, unquestioning compliance on the street. He was not used to a calm, deadpan refusal in front of a wealthy restaurant crowd that was now openly staring at him. He felt his authority slipping. "I'm not asking you again," Stanton barked, his voice echoing off the high ceiling. "Show me the tags or step away from the dog." It was an impossible command. Eli stood his ground. "I am not leaving, and I am not leaving my dog." Stanton bypassed the verbal argument completely. He lunged forward. He reached his left hand aggressively toward Bruno's black harness, intending to physically drag the animal out the door. Bruno didn't growl. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't break his sit. But Eli moved. Instinctively, smoothly, Eli stepped laterally. He placed his own body squarely between the officer's reaching hand and the dog. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't push back. He just took the physical space, becoming a solid human shield. "Do not touch my dog," Eli commanded. Stanton perceived the block as a direct physical challenge. "Stop resisting!" Stanton screamed. He grabbed a thick fistful of Eli's canvas jacket right at the collar. He used his forward momentum to violently shove Eli backward. Eli's heavy boots slipped on the highly polished marble floor. Stanton stepped inside Eli's guard, hooked his heavy-duty boot behind Eli's leg, and drove his entire upper body weight forward in a forceful takedown. The impact was brutal. Eli slammed face first into the hard marble. The sound of bone hitting stone cracked like a gunshot through the room. Several people gasped aloud. A waiter dropped a tray. Chairs scraped loudly against the floor as diners scrambled to back away from the violence. Stanton immediately dropped his heavy knee directly onto the center of Eli's spine, pinning his chest flat to the cold stone. He grabbed Eli's left wrist, wrenching the arm painfully high up toward his shoulder blades. "Give me your hands!" Stanton yelled, his breathing ragged, his chest heaving with adrenaline. He pulled his cuffs. The heavy steel ratcheted shut around Eli's left wrist. He grabbed the right arm, yanked it across Eli's lower back, and locked the second cuff. Click, click, click. Through it all, Bruno did not bark. A normal dog would have attacked the man, assaulting its owner. But Bruno simply took one step forward and lay down flat on the cold marble. He pressed his warm snout directly against the side of Eli's face. He didn't move a single muscle. Eli lay pinned beneath the 200-pound patrolman. The marble was freezing against his skin. A thin line of blood started to pool under his jaw from the impact. He looked at his dog. Then he spoke. His voice was dangerously calm, muffled against the stone floor. "Check my right pocket." At 7:48 p.m., the silence in the grand lobby of the Oak Room was absolute and suffocating. Officer Stanton remained kneeling on the cold marble floor. His heavy-duty boot was braced against the polished stone, and his right knee was driven firmly into the center of Eli Payton's spine. Stanton's chest heaved. The adrenaline from the violent takedown was still spiking. His breath hissed loudly through his clenched teeth. Beneath him, Eli didn't struggle. He lay perfectly still under the crushing weight of the 200-pound patrolman. His hands were locked tightly behind his back in the heavy steel cuffs. The cold metal bit deeply into his wrist bones. A thin, dark line of blood trailed slowly from his scraped cheek, pooling on the pristine white marble. Just inches from Eli's face, Bruno lay completely motionless. He didn't whimper. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't move. Not a sound. He just kept his warm snout pressed firmly against Eli's jawline. The diners had stopped retreating. They were now standing in a wide, loose circle around the host stand. The soft jazz music playing over the restaurant's hidden speakers felt entirely out of place. More than a dozen smartphones were already raised in the air. The camera lenses were pointed directly at the officer, pinning the bleeding man and his silent dog. Mr. Gates, the restaurant manager, stood frozen near the coat check, staring blankly at the blood on his floor. "Check my right pocket," Eli repeated. His voice was muffled against the stone, but it carried an unnatural, icy calm. Stanton ignored the tone. He was still riding the high of establishing physical dominance. "I'll check whatever I want to check," Stanton muttered. Stanton kept his left hand gripping the steel chain between Eli's cuffs, pulling upward just enough to maintain painful leverage on the shoulders. He used his free right hand to rough search Eli's right side. He felt the square, thick outline in the front pocket of the heavy canvas jacket. Stanton shoved his hand into the pocket and pulled out a thick black leather bifold wallet. "Let's see exactly who we have here," Stanton said. He shifted his weight slightly, sitting back on his heel while keeping his knee planted directly on Eli's spine. Stanton brought the wallet up to chest level. The leather was worn and heavy. He flipped it open with his right thumb. He didn't see a standard state driver's license in the clear front window. Instead, the plastic sleeve held a solid green military identification card. Stanton's eyes tracked the bold red status line printed directly below the photograph. Service-connected disability. Stanton paused. The initial rush of aggressive energy began to curdle in his stomach. He had just brutally tackled and handcuffed a disabled military veteran. The phones in the crowd were still recording every single second. It was a terrible visual, but Stanton's mind automatically pivoted to self-preservation. He could still spin it. He could write it up as a failure to comply. He just needed the civilian ID to write the report and justify the takedown. Stanton hooked his thumb under the center leather divider and flipped the heavy flap over. The wallet felt unusually heavy on that side. Stanton didn't find a driver's license. He found a piece of solid die-cast metal securely pinned to the thick leather backing. The soft, ambient light of the restaurant chandeliers caught the polished gold surface. In the center of the heavy metal shield was an eagle. Surrounding the eagle, filled with pristine, dark blue enamel, were 3 words that hit Stanton like a physical blow to the chest. Department of Justice. Directly below the federal seal, engraved deeply into a solid gold banner, were 2 more words: Senior Prosecutor. Officer Stanton stopped breathing, his vocal cords paralyzed. The heavy gold shield felt like burning coals in his hand. The blue enamel letters blurred. He looked up at the crowd. He saw the glowing screens, the flashing red recording dots. He looked back down at the heavy gold shield in his hand. Not this one. You don't spin this one? Stanton slowly lowered the wallet. The restaurant around him suddenly felt entirely silent. The hum of the jazz music faded into a high-pitched ringing in his ears. His right hand, still gripping the leather, began to shake violently. A cold sweat broke across the back of his neck. He looked down. Eli Payton was still pinned to the floor. He slowly turned his head. The right side of his face was a mess of torn skin and blood. His eyes locked directly onto Stanton's. Stanton just stared, completely frozen. "You didn't ask a question," Eli said. His voice was quiet, clinical, and completely devoid of emotion. "You just reached." Stanton opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His throat was completely dry. "Get your knee off my back," Eli ordered. Stanton immediately complied. He scrambled backward, almost losing his balance on the slick marble floor. He stood up, his hands trembling at his sides. "Don't touch the cuffs," Eli continued, staying flat on the floor. "Don't touch the dog. Unclip your radio." Stanton stared at him, trapped in the dead silence of the room. "Call your watch commander to this location," Eli said, the blood dripping from his chin onto the stone. "Right now." At 7:51 p.m., Officer Stanton stood completely paralyzed in the center of the restaurant lobby. The heavy gold shield in his hand felt like a lead weight. "Make the call, officer," Eli repeated from the floor. His voice was muffled against the marble, but the command was absolute. Stanton's left hand trembled as he reached up to his shoulder. He fumbled with the radio mic, pressing the transmit button. His chest was tight. He couldn't draw a full breath. "Dispatch Unit 4, Stanton said, his voice cracked. "Requesting a patrol supervisor to my location, the Oak Room. Copy 4, supervisor en route." 3 minutes passed, then 4. The silence in the lobby was heavy. Stanton didn't move. He didn't put the wallet back into Eli's pocket. He didn't turn around to tell the crowd of civilians to step back. He didn't say a single word. He just stood frozen, staring blankly at the wooden hose stand. On the floor, Eli remained exactly where he had been violently shoved. He didn't shift his weight. He didn't ask to sit up. He didn't ask for a napkin to wipe his face. He let the heavy steel cuffs bite into his wrists. The blood on his cheek slowly dried against the cold stone. Bruno, the German shepherd, did not leave his side. The dog remained flat on the marble, his amber eyes open, his warm snout pressed firmly against Eli's jaw. Eli stayed completely flat. The cameras in the crowd did not lower. The red recording lights kept glowing. Nobody in the restaurant went back to their tables. Through the heavy glass doors, the red and blue emergency lights of a Ford Police Interceptor SUV cut through the dark street. Sergeant Nelson pushed through the doors. He stopped immediately inside the entryway. His eyes methodically scanned the scene. He saw the circle of diners holding up phones. He saw the massive silent dog. He saw the blood smeared on the white marble floor. And he saw his patrolman standing over a handcuffed man, looking completely vacant. Nelson walked past the crowd. He stopped next to Stanton. "What do we have, Stanton?" Nelson asked. His voice was low and flat. Stanton didn't speak. He just slowly raised his right hand and held out the open leather wallet. Nelson looked down. He saw the military ID first. Then his eyes shifted to the heavy gold shield pinned to the leather. Department of Justice, Senior Prosecutor. Nelson's posture instantly rigidified. He looked past Stanton, staring directly at the man handcuffed on the floor. Nelson recognized the face. He had testified in front of him in federal court 2 years ago. Nelson walked straight past his patrolman. He reached onto his duty belt and pulled out his universal handcuff key. "Mr. Payton," Nelson said, keeping his voice neutral, "let's get these off." Nelson knelt down on the marble. He reached for Eli's left arm. Eli immediately shifted his weight, pulling his wrists away from the sergeant's reach. "Do not touch these cuffs," Eli stated. His voice was projected, loud enough to be recorded by every smartphone in the lobby. Nelson stopped. His hand hovered over the steel chain. "Eli, let's take the steel off and figure this out," Nelson said. His eyes darted to the blood on the floor, then to the glowing phone screens in the crowd. He reached for the arm again. "I'm not going anywhere," Eli said, his cheek still pressed to the floor. Nelson slowly lowered his hands. "These cuffs stay exactly how we put them on," Eli continued. He turned his head slightly, locking eyes with the sergeant. "This gets documented, right here, on this floor." Nelson looked at the torn skin on Eli's face. He looked at the blood. "He went straight to force," Eli stated. He didn't ask a single qualifying question. He just reached for the dog. Stanton took a panicked step forward. "Sergeant," he refused to show his papers. "Shut your mouth, Stanton," Nelson snapped. He didn't even look back at the patrolman. Eli kept his eyes locked on Nelson. "Call internal affairs," Eli ordered. A heavy pause fell over the officers. The only sound was the soft clicking of phone cameras from the crowd. "Now," Eli said, "and get a duty captain down here." Nelson didn't argue. He looked at the phones, looked at Eli, and completely stopped trying to unlock the steel. "Take his body camera," Eli commanded. "Take it off his chest and bag it before he touches it." Nelson involuntarily glanced at the black plastic Axon camera mounted on Stanton's uniform. Stanton froze, his hand halfway to the device. "Do it right now," Eli said. Nelson stood up. He looked at the ring of civilians. He saw the red recording lights. He turned around and walked back to Stanton. "Sergeant, I thought it was a fake service dog," Stanton pleaded, his voice breaking. "I didn't know." "Give me the camera," Nelson ordered. "Sergeant, please." "Take it off your chest, Stanton. You're done." At 10 a.m. the next morning, the private office of civil rights attorney Robert Quinn was quiet. Eli Payton sat in a high-backed leather chair. He wore a fresh, dark button-down shirt. The right side of his face, from his cheekbone down to his jaw, was covered by a thick white medical dressing. Sitting directly on the thick carpet at his feet, completely silent, was Bruno. Quinn sat across the wide mahogany desk. He didn't look at Eli. He was staring directly at a 65-inch monitor mounted to the wall. He held a wireless mouse in his right hand. They were watching Officer Stanton's uploaded body camera footage. The audio from the restaurant lobby filled the office. It was raw and loud. "Show me the tags or step away from the dog," Stanton's voice echoed from the speakers, harsh and aggressive. "I am not leaving, and I am not leaving my dog." Eli's voice played back, calm and level. Quinn watched the screen. The high-definition video showed Stanton's left hand violently reaching into the frame toward the dog's black harness. It showed Eli stepping smoothly in the way, taking the space. Then, the footage accelerated into chaos. The camera jerked wildly. The heavy, sickening crack of Eli's face hitting the marble floor blasted through the office speakers. Quinn clicked the mouse. The video froze. The frame was locked. It showed Stanton's heavy-duty boot firmly planted on the floor. It showed Eli pinned to the marble, blood already pooling under his chin. And it showed the dog, lying perfectly still next to him, his snout pressed to Eli's face. Quinn let go of the mouse. He leaned back in his leather chair. The silence in the office was heavy. "He didn't ask the questions," Quinn stated. His voice was completely flat. Eli didn't say anything. He just looked at the frozen frame on the wall. "He reached for the animal," Quinn continued. "He went straight to force." Quinn paused. "On a compliant guy." Quinn leaned forward, resting his arms on the desk. "He doesn't have cover," Quinn said. He looked up at the frozen screen, staring directly at the heavy black boot on Eli's back. "Not after that." Quinn opened a thick manila folder on his desk. He pulled out a blue-backed legal document and slid it across the polished mahogany. "Excessive force," Quinn said, tapping the heavy paper. He paused. "Unlawful detainment." He paused again, looking at Eli. "A DA violation." Eli looked down at the document. He turned to the last page. The damages were printed in bold black ink. $2,500,000. "The city is going to try to push this to discovery," Eli said, staring at the number. Quinn shook his head. "No, they aren't." He pointed at the frozen video on the screen. "They'll see this," Quinn stated with absolute certainty. "They'll fold." Quinn picked up a heavy silver pen and held it out across the desk. "We are naming the department," Quinn said, "and we are naming Officer Stanton personally. He stepped completely outside of policy. They'll drop him." Eli took the silver pen. He uncapped it. He signed his name on the claimant line in black ink. The scratching of the metal pen was loud in the quiet room. Quinn took the document back. He folded it sharply and slid it into a heavy envelope. "I have a courier waiting downstairs," Quinn said. "This gets time-stamped at the city clerk's office before noon. Stanton gets served by the dinner. 72 hours later." The glass-walled conference room in the city attorney's office was completely quiet. The chief of police sat on one side of the long mahogany table. A representative from the police union sat next to him. Across from them sat the lead city attorney. The 65-inch monitor on the wall had just finished playing the body cam footage for the third time. "The union is asking the city to provide standard legal counsel for Officer Stanton," the union rep said. It was a chaotic environment. He made a split-second error. The city attorney didn't look up from his files. He didn't blink. "There was no split-second error," the attorney replied. His voice was entirely flat. "There was no chaos until your patrolman manufactured it. He battered a senior DOJ prosecutor on high-definition video." The union rep leaned forward. "He thought the animal was a threat to—" "He didn't think," the attorney cut him off. "He didn't ask the questions. He went straight to battery." The attorney picked up a heavy rubber stamp. He pressed it hard into a red ink pad, then slammed it down onto the front page of Officer Stanton's personnel file. The red ink bled into the paper. Non-indemnification. "The city is severing all liability," the attorney stated. He slid the file across the table. "We are not defending him. We are not paying his legal fees. The department is cutting a settlement check for $2.5 million today to keep this out of federal court. Stanton is on his own." Cut to the 44th Precinct locker room. The room was empty except for two men. Thomas Stanton stood in front of his open metal locker. He was already in civilian clothes, jeans and a plain gray t-shirt. An empty cardboard box rested at his feet. Captain Owen stood blocking the exit to the hallway. He held a clipboard. He looked at Stanton with absolute freezing indifference. Stanton reached onto the top shelf. He pulled down his duty belt. He placed it gently into the cardboard box. "Weapon," Owens ordered. Stanton opened his plastic lockbox. He pulled out his department-issued 9mm Sig Sauer. He dropped the magazine into his palm, cleared the chamber, and placed the cold, heavy pistol onto the wooden bench. He placed the 3 loaded magazines next to it. "Shield," Owen said. Stanton reached into his front pocket. His fingers trembled as he pulled out the silver, star-shaped badge. He held it in his open palm. He stared down at the engraved numbers. The locker room was dead silent. Stanton slowly turned his wrist and dropped the badge onto the wooden bench next to the gun. The metal clanked sharply. Owen stepped forward and dropped a thick manila envelope into the cardboard box. "The city paid the settlement," Owen stated. $2.5 million. Stanton stared at the envelope. His hands felt completely numb. "But they denied indemnification," Owens continued. Stanton looked up. The color drained from his face. "What does that mean?" "It means the city paid," Owens replied coldly. Stanton swallowed hard. "And now they are coming for you," Owens said. "Every single dollar." Owens stepped back, opening the door to the hallway. "They will garnish your civilian wages. They will place a lien on your house. You are ruined, Thomas. Empty your locker and get out of my building." Cut to the exterior. A bright, crisp Tuesday afternoon. Eli Peyton stood on the sidewalk outside a busy downtown park. The heavy white dressing on his face had been replaced by a smaller set of steri strips. Sitting directly at his left heel was Bruno. The massive German shepherd sat perfectly still, his amber eyes calmly watching the traffic. Eli reached down. He didn't say a word. He held a heavy braided leather leash. He clipped the thick, solid brass carabiner onto the metal ring of Bruno's black harness. Click. The sound of the heavy brass locking shut was loud and metallic. Eli stood up and started walking. Bruno stayed perfectly at his side. The camera stays fixed on the heavy brass clip on the black harness, catching the afternoon sun as they walk away. He gets 2 questions. He didn't ask. Drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and let me know in the comments. At what exact second did Officer Stanton realize his life was over? I'll see you in the next breakdown.
Report officially finalized. To ensure you see future transparent records, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching Bodycam Incident Reports.